laptop. They appear to show the president's son claiming he routinely covered his family's expenses, including those for his dad, then Vice President Biden. In a text to his daughter Naomi, Hunter reportedly wrote, "I hope you all can do what I did and pay for everything for this entire family for 30 years. It's really hard, but don't worry. Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary." Whoa. Pop reportedly refers to President Biden. And with more new information coming to light each day, former Clinton advisor Doug Schoen is warning that if evidence emerges showing President Biden profited off his son's business dealings, it could be a disaster for the Democrats in November. He writes this: "What is now likely a red wave election could turn into a massive blowout that is more substantial than anything seen in recent history." Emily, we'll get to these new text messages in just a moment, but I know you've dug deep into this University of Pennsylvania Biden Center, which took in $67 million from China, raising questions if it was not appropriately registered under the Foreign Agents FARA Act, then it could cause problems potentially.
That's right. So interestingly, right after in 2018 that the Biden Center was named at UPenn, all of a sudden there was a massive surge in donations from China, both anonymously and not. So $67 million total and over $22 million in anonymous donations, $27 million a year, $26 million a year. And the question is, if there was some type of explicit or implicit or even a general understanding that there would be a quid pro quo, some type of thing that would benefit Chinese interests, even the appearance of such, then that requires registration as a foreign lobbyist, right? So this watchdog is essentially saying, look, this has been going on for 4 years, millions of dollars, and we have evidence, for example, the ambassador being the keynote speaker at the Chinese symposium there. Well, what kind of control and influence does that get him? What relationships accrued out of that appearance? And so they're asking, at the very minimum, they need to look in, and as we always say, look where the money goes, where the money comes from, and where the benefits lay, because at least how it looks is an incredible conflict of interest.
Yes, there needs to be some digging, but we do know this. We know President Joe Biden had no knowledge of any of this because he told us so. Harris, though, this text message, "Unlike Pop, I won't make you give me half your salary." I mean, this raises a lot of questions for President Biden.
So I agree in terms of following the money, right? My dad used to say that all the time. You know what else you follow? Relationships and stuff.
Yes.
That sounded chippy to me. It sounded like they maybe weren't getting along on the money, and so you complain to your sibling, and then you put it in writing. Right? So with all of the investigations that we saw with the last administration and people coming forth to testify and the hearsay, so on and so forth, this reads like a crime blotter. Now, was there a crime committed? We don't know. That's why there's a grand jury and there are investigations, plural, going on right now. They'll look into it. But the potential for access, command and control type behavior, influence, and vulnerability that this drug-fueled son at the time, potentially most of the time, but we don't know. We can only live by what we see on YouTube. If you can watch it, it needs to be digitalized in certain sections, if you know what I mean. But when you look at that evidence stacking up there, how does that jive with some of the money that was changing hands? I mean, I'd like to look at an overlay of dates, what was going on with the then vice president, his son, and then some of the transactions that were going on as well, because that relationship will tell us a lot.
It will. And Brian, I've just got to wonder, if you're Vice President Biden, your son's paying for some of your expenses. Look, we don't have direct evidence of these payments. We only have the text messages. We know some of them were reimbursed by Vice President Biden. Nevertheless, your son's paying for some of your expenses, at least initially. Wouldn't you ask, where, Hunter, are you getting this money if you know your son has this addiction?
They have a lot not to talk about. Between I can't talk to my brother about his business deals, I can't talk to my sister about what my brother and my son are doing. I can't talk to my son about his business deals. What do you bring up? Let's talk about crack. That's a lot to talk about there, but evidently they didn't talk about that enough. Number one, I just go back to the fact is this guy's got a huge addiction. And as a parent,
sadly,
right, as a parent, the last thing you want to do, or a friend, is put someone with an addiction in a high-stress situation. Yeah. They even have trouble handling holidays. I'm not judging them. I'm telling you that's a fact. So if holidays come up, the stress of seeing family sends a lot over the edge. Why would you send them to China to do a deal with an energy company that's hooked to the Chinese government that happens to have a role in the Belt and Road program, which is looking to circumvent the U.S. as the number one power in the world, economic power in the world? It is unbelievable. I would add this. What is China doing at the University of Pennsylvania with $64 million? Trying to infiltrate our college system again, and the Vice President of the United States allegedly knew nothing about it, I doubt it.
Knew nothing. And remember, on behalf of a Chinese executive of Hunter, allegedly it was then private citizen Joe Biden who wrote that recommendation letter to Brown University for this son, this business partner of Hunter's son, to get into that university. Carly, I want to talk quickly about Edward Sherwin. He is the president of Rosemont Seneca. This is the Chinese investment firm that Hunter was working with. The messages we have from the New York Post list off some of the JRB payments. Those are President Joe Biden's initials. They included a palatial lakefront payment for upkeep, $1,239 in repairs for an air condition, $1,475 to a painter for back wall and columns at the lake house, $2,600 for fixing up a stone retaining wall at the lake, and $475 for shutters. Go Hunter! He's funding his dad there.
Yeah,
Go beach house.
wild turn of events, but.